Luke, the historian in the storm. The cell is darker than the one described at the end of Acts. That earlier confinement had space. Visitors came and went. Paul taught openly under guard, waiting for his case to be heard. There was tension, but there was also hope. This is not that cell. This is later. The air is colder now. The walls feel closer. Nero's Rome has grown suspicious and violent. Christians are no longer tolerated as a harmless sect within Judaism. They are expendable. An aging apostle sits in chains and writes what will likely be his final words. Luke alone is with me. 2 Timothy 4:11. That line is quiet, almost understated, but it carries the weight of decades. Before we return to that cell again, we need to rewind the road that led there, because Luke did not appear at the end of Paul's life. He walked into the story much earlier, and he walked carefully. In Acts 16, something subtle happens. The narrative shifts from they to we. No explanation, no biography, no spotlight, just a pronoun. We sought to go on into Macedonia. The author is no longer reporting from a distance. He is present. Luke joins the journey. He walks the Roman roads into Philippi and watches as Lydia's heart is opened. He stands in the marketplace as accusations rise. He hears the crack of rods against Paul and Silas. He listens to hymns sung in the darkness of a jail cell before the earth shakes and doors fly open. He travels through Macedonia and into Asia Minor. He is in Jerusalem as tensions rise. He records how Paul is seized in the temple courts and how Roman soldiers intervene to prevent a mob from tearing him apart. And then he boards a ship bound for Rome. Acts 27 does not read like imagination. It reads like memory. The wind strengthens and turns contrary. The ship runs under the lee of a small island called Cauda. Sailors haul the lifeboat aboard and undergird the hull with ropes. They fear being driven onto the Syrtis sands. They jettison cargo. For days, neither sun nor stars appear. All hope of being saved is abandoned. This is not vague symbolism. It is nautical detail. Modern scholars have noted how Luke's description aligns with Mediterranean sailing practices, prevailing winds, and the geography of Malta's coastline. The final approach and wreck near what is now called St. Paul's Bay fits the contours of that shore with striking realism. Luke does not describe the sea like a poet reaching for metaphor. He describes it like a man who felt the spray on his face and heard the timbers groan in the night. And yet, even in that storm, his attention is not on himself. It is on what happened. Paul standing in the midst of panic, a Roman centurion choosing restraint over cruelty, soldiers prevented from killing prisoners. Events unfolding in real time, under real authority. This is how Luke writes. When he opens his gospel, he does not begin with abstraction. It seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus. Luke 1:3. Followed all things closely. The phrase carries the sense of tracing events carefully, investigating thoroughly, tracking the details. And most excellent Theophilus is not casual language. In Acts, that same form of address is used for Roman officials like Felix and Festus. Theophilus appears to have been a man of rank, someone accustomed to formal address. We cannot say with certainty who he was. Scripture does not give us his biography, but some have suggested a possibility worth considering. If Theophilus had some connection to Paul's legal defense, perhaps even serving in a capacity that required careful review of testimony before Caesar, Luke's 2 volumes would read naturally as a structured account meant for scrutiny. They repeatedly emphasize that neither Jesus nor Paul posed a threat to Roman order. Roman officials again and again declare Paul innocent of wrongdoing under Roman law. Even in the gospel, Pilate leans toward declaring Jesus innocent. This does not mean Luke was writing propaganda. It means he was writing history as it unfolded. Over time, archaeological discoveries have strengthened confidence in his precision. For years, critics questioned Luke's terminology when he referred to officials in Thessalonica as politarchs. The term did not appear in classical literature and was assumed to be an invention. Then inscriptions were uncovered in Thessalonica using that exact title. Luke had used the correct local term. In Acts 18, Luke names Gallio as proconsul of Achaia. An inscription discovered at Delphi later confirmed Gallio's tenure in the early 50s AD, anchoring Paul's movements in verifiable chronology. Luke writes like a man who expects his account to be examined. He names rulers. He identifies provinces. He situates events under public authority. He records trials, speeches, verdicts, and appeals. Jesus is placed under Pontius Pilate. Paul stands before Roman magistrates. Riots erupt in identifiable cities. Voyages follow recognizable trade routes. This is not faith floating in legend. It is faith rooted in history. Luke does not ask us to suspend thought. He invites us to examine. The storm was real. The governors were real. The trials were public. The accusations were heard. The verdicts were spoken. And Luke followed all things closely. That matters. Because in every generation, questions arise. Doubts whisper. Skepticism suggests that the gospel grew in the shadows of myth. Luke answers, not with volume, but with detail. He writes an orderly account. He anchors redemption in geography. He situates resurrection claims in public memory, while eyewitnesses were still alive. And then, after the storm, after the trials, after what appears to be a successful first imprisonment in Rome that ends with release, the road continues. But we will return to that. For now, sit with what Luke has given us. A gospel investigated carefully, an account structured deliberately, a narrative that withstands scrutiny. Because Luke followed closely, we can read confidently. Because he wrote an orderly account, we can trust that our faith is not resting on rumor, but on events rooted in time and place. As you sit with this today, consider where questions or uncertainties have quietly unsettled your confidence in the gospel. Where might you need to look again at the texture of the story Luke preserved? And how might careful investigation strengthen, rather than weaken, your trust in Jesus? If you're willing, share your reflections or questions in the comments so we can continue walking this road together.